Hey, good morning, all. It's July 29th. It's a Thursday. We're talking about issues that matter. Doug Pagitt here. Normally, I say Doug Pagitt here in Minneapolis, but today in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And hey, Dan. Dan's been holding down the fort this week as a few of us have been doing a scouting trip, driving the route that we're going to be on for the We the People bike ride along the United States and Mexico border and then the coastlands. That ride starts September 10th and runs through November 14th. We'd invite you to come along a day or two with us. Today, we're going to give you some reports from what we've been seeing here. We're on this scouting trip, looking at our route, seeing where we should ride, and confirming what we see on a Google map, and then meeting with a number of our partners that we're going to work with as we travel along the border, because the We the People ride is a storytelling project. It's a chance for us to bear witness to what life is on the borderlands. And the reason we're doing this is so many of us don't know how to think about our United States border. We don't know how to think about immigration policy. And we want to help all of us have more handholds and more lenses, to switch to the metaphor, through which we can think about, look at, and understand what's happening on the border. And when you get close to it and you come and you meet with the people who live in what are called these borderland towns and often these border cities that will share a community in the Mexico side and on the US side, and have long been one community. And even when there was a demarcation of international boundary between the countries, the flow between the communities was natural. And that has changed really since the middle 1990s, and then ramped up in the early 2000s after September 11th attacks, and then intensified even more after 2016, this separation between the peoples. And so now a lot of us look at this land and we don't know how to think about it. So what we're doing on the ride is trying to get ourselves close to it. Now, I know that not everyone watching this can come with us or wants to. So we're going to find many ways to be reporting back what's going on. I want to give you a little glimpse of that today. It's been a very impactful time for us just these last 4 days. We started in San Diego, and we came along through Mexicali and through Yuma, Arizona, and through Nogales, Arizona. You're going to see some videos from Nogales. Yesterday, we were in Douglas, Arizona, and Agua Prieta, Mexico, which are two cities on the same, two of the same city on two sides of the border. Same with Nogales, Mexico, and Nogales, Arizona. And today we're in Las Cruces. So you're going to meet some of the people that we met in San Diego and Nogales, and you're going to see some of the photos from our time in Agua Prieta. I'm going to tell you some stories about this. So Dan, I'll tell you what, man. Every time I get close to this border wall and I see it, it is shocking. We'll show you a video here, an image here, if you're watching on the live stream video, and if you're only watching on the or listening on the podcast, maybe head over to YouTube or to Facebook onto our Vocom and Good channels and look at these images, because they're really powerful. This is one that is the border wall. It's the 18-foot border wall. This is an image from the Mexico side, or what I really like how they talk about it here in the borderlands. They call this the south side versus the north side. Right, just recognizing that one community has been torn apart by this obnoxious wall. And on the Mexico side, the south side, they painted murals all along this park. Now, not the entire wall. The majority of this entire wall, as it exists through Arizona and through California and into Texas, is hideous. So on the Mexico side, in this part, they've built a whole park, and there's a walkway and murals along it, trying to tell a more beautiful story and to lay it on top of these walls. This is one of the things that I've learned about the people in these areas, is that they're, like all of us, having to make beauty out of the destructive ashes of these walls, if you know that biblical phrase, right? They're doing what they can. The wall is going to be there, and there are no murals on the US side. The United States government will not allow people to beautify the wall. Now, there's some activists who don't want to beautify the wall. They think you don't make something so hideous into something beautiful, but other people have a different opinion to try to overcome its ugliness, even though it's brutal.
Yeah.
With
it's an act of resistance to make something hideous beautiful.
It's incredible. On the Mexico side, you don't have this razor wire either. We'll show you an image here of what it looks like when on the U.S. side. Dan, can you show them the one of the razor wire? The On the U.S. side, they put this baling wire that's sharp razors because they want to slow down people who are climbing over the walls. So if you're looking at this image, you can see it already. If not, I'll describe it. It's a long wall in Nogales, Arizona, and it is an 18-foot high steel rusting wall that then has razor wire on it. It looks like a prison camp, an occupied city.
Yeah.
Now, normally, this kind of razor wire and so on they use it in prisons and other places where they're trying to keep people in. The thing about this wall that makes it so obnoxious and so painful and so morally wrong is it's unclear who's being locked into where. Are we keeping people out or are we keeping Americans in? On this very same wall, there's even a sign that says no trespassing. It's almost as if the story of the U.S. Custom and Border Protection is trying to keep people in the United States caged in. It feels that way. Then you look on the south side, on the Mexico side, and it's turned into a beautiful mural. You may have a lot of opinions about how to think about immigration policy and border practices, but this wall is just wrong at every possible term. And it's a big character in this, but we don't only want to focus on the wall. The people, this is a we the people ride. The question being, who are we and who are the people that we include in our collective we in a nation and elsewhere? So what could we do to create beauty and to create goodness and to change the story of our wall? This particular image, and I shot a short video about it that we'll show you in a moment, is a piece of what was made as landing strip for Operation Desert Storm. Think about that, Dan. Way back in the 90s, George H.W. Bush, military action in Iraq and Kuwait. They kept these long pieces of metal that they would piece together to make a landing strip in the desert. Well, after they had all this metal and didn't know what to do with it, and they took it out of Iraq and Kuwait, they shipped it back here to the United States and put it vertically in the ground to make the border wall, start building the border wall. Then when they replaced that border wall, they took this piece of metal out and put in another piece of metal. And you'll see this on the video. And this place that we're going to be in Nogales, Mexico, it's more than a shelter. It's a care facility for migrants and for asylum seekers. They've taken a piece of that and made it into the entrance to the playground. And I think there's something really, really prophetic and really great about this.
Yeah, it's sort of a plows, swords into plowshares. You've changed something, again, that was meant for war and meant for keeping people out to an entrance. And they've painted it in vibrant colors if you're just listening, and turned it into, again, something beautiful that was meant for something damaging.
That is exactly it. And the question is, can we turn our border practices and immigration policies the same way? They are clearly designed to separate people. Yeah. Now, you might say, well, we need to have them for a whole variety of reasons to protect ourselves. But look, we've been at this aggressive, lock the country up, try to seal the border approach for 30, nearly 40 years of border walls. And let me ask anyone this question. Do you think the border is now safe? And if after 30 years it's not safe, what's it going to take? Another 30 years until we get to safety? The thing is, the wall doesn't keep anyone safe. Dan, the thing, we'll talk about this in a whole other podcast, but one of the people that works in Douglas, Arizona, and Agua Prieta, Mexico, these sister cities, had a really great set of categories that have been very helpful for me. He said, human beings do migrate, and the idea that people are going to be mobile is something we should be building into our immigration understanding, right? That human beings from all of recorded history have been moving about the planet, right? That's obvious. And we move between cities, we move between countries, we move between continents. That's what human beings do. So we have a border wall designed to stop that movement to some part. And it not only stops human beings, it stops animals, it stops bees, it stops the wind. which actually is creating, all of those are creating environmental problems. So this wall is just a mistake. For all of those reasons. So that's the idea that we do have to look at what it means for people to want to be mobile. But then he also said, but also people need to be stable. In other words, what can we do to help people have a stable life in the countries that they want to stay in? That almost no migrants just simply want to leave their country and go live somewhere else. It's a heartbreak for them. You're going to hear that in some of the stories that we have in the recordings here. So there's two projects that have kind of two big headings. How do we help create a context where people can be mobile and a context where people can be stable? So all the work of like, what do we do on what often referred to as the push issues, where people are being pushed out of Central America, out of Haiti, out of Mexico, and they can't stay there. Could we do some things as the United States to make those places more stable so people can stay? And can we create more of a flow so that people who want to be or need to be mobile can be mobile? Right now, what we're doing is we're making people who want to be mobile stagnant, and we're creating contexts of instability in all of these countries. So there's a lot that we need to do and a lot that we need to get after. But fundamentally, we want this to be a human project and a human story. So we're going to let you meet some of the people here on the podcast. And all of this is designed to invite you, intrigue you, to pull you, to follow us, to participate in the ride. Now, you can participate with us by coming for the entire time. You can come for a day, you can come for a week. We'll have a bicycle for you if you don't want to travel with your own bike or don't have one, or you don't have to bike at all. You can just ride along and be a support and come and experience these towns. Or you can do it virtually. You can keep up with us this way. You can ride a Peloton. You can ride your own bike. You can not ride at all and just follow along to what we do. So you're going to see some videos here. You're going to meet people in Arizona, at the Nogales, in Nogales, Arizona, and in Mexico, at Nogales, Mexico. And the reason we're showing you the Nogales, Mexico piece is that we're going to be staying in this center, this shelter. They've invited us to stay there for a night, and we'll be able to stay with the migrants and with the asylum seekers. They have a whole separate section set up for groups like ours. So we'll be able to stay there and cook with them and bake bread and sing songs and have a dance party at night. Like being able to really connect with these people who are trying to save their lives, trying to save their families, trying to save their children. I've met some of these people, and they're so inspiring. Like, you might think that you should feel sorry only and feel badly for people who are asylum seekers and migrants. And I get that. I feel that way too. And when you meet them, you will also feel inspired by them, knowing that if you were in this situation, you would likely do the same thing. So they're just amazingly inspiring people. So you're going to meet Lika. She runs the program. She's a former Catholic nun. She's an artist. You're going to see some of her artwork. They have kids that they teach there. You're going to hear that interview where she speaks in Spanish, and then the person with us who's helping us to coordinate there does some translating. I think it's great that you get to hear both languages describing what goes on at this center. You're going to meet the people over in San Diego who run an operation called Border Church, where they do church at the border with people on both sides. Now, San Diego is on the ocean. You'll see the wall that runs right out into the ocean. And then they do a church service across the border with people on a telephone on the North U.S. side and people on the South Mexico side on a loud sound system that's coming back over. So it's an amazing experience to be a part of. So you're going to meet these people. You're going to see them. I make a couple of other videos in here to sort of explain the situation. And it's a different kind of podcast and video stream than we've done before. But I hope it works, and hope that you enjoy it and you share it with your friends, and consider being a part of this big project with us as we try to build a sense of a common good, border practices, and immigration policy.
Yeah.
Dan, anything else you think we should talk about before we
No, I'm excited about this. And one thing that kind of struck me was I think John is his name in San Diego, talking about how open the border used to be. And so folks would, come to the States to work, and then when they wanted, they went back home to their families in Mexico. And what the border has done is created a situation where they can never go back, or it's very difficult to go back. say their parent dies and they want to go back for the funeral, which has happened to a couple of my friends, they have to weigh the option, like, do I go back and risk being caught at the border or not being able to come back to work? And so it again separates families permanently. And so it's just another example of the disaster that is our border policy.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Okay, well, we will talk to you early next week.
Yeah, here's the video.
So we're here in the border of Arizona and Mexico, and you can see that this border wall in this part of Arizona is a 6 foot high or shorter metal frame. It was referred to by the Border Patrol we just talked to as a vehicle barrier, and you can easily step over it and step into Mexico. There's not one of those big walls that are built that we've shown you in other parts, but this is a much more manageable demarcator of the border of one country to the other with a different attitude. The reason is because for 25 miles that direction, it's the desert. And the way we choose in this country to manage this part of the border is to make this desert so deadly that if anyone crosses here and tries to make it into the towns that are 25 or 50 miles away, they're going to suffer in the desert. There's a whole group of people all over the United States who work in areas like this, and they provide water and food and support. They call themselves Samaritans, from the story of the Good Samaritan. And they support these kinds of groups. These are some of the groups that we're going to be meeting and working with on the We the People ride as we travel from San Diego along this border and all the way to Florida to tell the story of immigration and border life. So we invite you to come along with us to see what this is like and why we organize some parts of this border with a big wall, some points with a small wall like this, some points with no wall at all, sometimes with just a river, and sometimes with no markers at all. So that's a big part of the story, is why the government chooses to organize the way that it does. And it's all part of what we want to understand as we engage in conversations about what a common good border immigration and border practices would mean for us. We are at the border wall in San Diego in Friendship Park at Borderland Park. This is the wall that separates the Mexico side from the United States side, and there's a church service today. So you can see people on the Mexico side that are gathering and doing worship on that side, and there's people meeting over here doing communion, and we're going to join in that activity.
A little closer if you want to hear a spiel, so I don't have to shout too much. We don't have to compete with the sound on the Mexican side. But so welcome to Friendship Park, westernmost end of the U.S.-Mexico border. This is actually a stone monument. You see the big lighthouse, but down beneath that is a stone monument. That was the first monument put in place at the end of the U.S.-Mexico War. So the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, 1848. You know, there was a rhyme or reason for the border in Texas, the Rio Grande River, but west of El Paso, there was no rhyme or reason for a border. They had to demarcate a new border. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo created a binational boundary commission that went out and marked the border by placing monuments, and this was the first monument put in place. So some people call this the birthplace of the border, where the border was first demarcated. And so across 170 years, this was known as a meeting place. You can barely see from here, but if you get an aerial view, you see there's a circle, and the monument sits smack dab at the center of that circle. So it was created as a binational plaza with the monument at its center. And the monument, in fact, sits precisely on the international boundary, half in the United States and half in Mexico. And for most of that history, 170 years, there were no barriers here of any kind. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that they even put up strands of barbed wire. So I've talked to old-timers in San Diego who remember when it was just, you know, posts with a rope on it, and they drag their bikes over the rope and go eat tacos in Tijuana and come back at the end of the day, right? 1970s, they put up barbed wire, and in 1971, First Lady Pat Nixon inaugurated this surrounding area as California's Borderfield State Park. That was August 18th, 1971. And on that occasion, she said this is the beginning of creating what we'll call International Friendship Park. And after planting a tree, she actually had her security detail cut the barbed wire so that she could walk into Mexico to greet the crowd. This is the sitting First Lady of the United States. The sitting Republican First Lady of the United States, mind you, right? And the Republican Party loved that so much, they showed a clip of it at the 1972 Republican National Convention to show what a wonderful First Lady they had. So that's how far we've come in 50 years with the Republican Party. So since that vision of International Friendship Park was kind of propagated, people continued to gather here. And in the 1990s, they first put up adjacent to the monument what was sort of like a chain link fence, but it was more durable material. And it was during those years, as the U.S. federal government hardened the border, that more and more people who migrated from Mexico to the United States, instead of going back and forth across the border, they began to really settle permanently in the United States and return to Mexico less frequently for all kinds of reasons. And so as a consequence, more and more people started to come to Friendship Park to meet up with their loved ones in Mexico. So images you may have seen online include a lot of family reunions, people in the United States. The vast majority of people who've come to Friendship Park across the years are not undocumented, because if you're undocumented, the place is crawling with Border Patrol, you probably don't want to risk that. It turns out there are millions of people in the United States who have a status in the United States, but they can't leave the country, right? They're dreamers, they have DACA, or they have a case pending before the U.S. immigration courts, they can't leave the country, or they lose their standing. Or they're on parole, right? The judge says 5 years parole. If you leave the country, you violate your parole, or throw you back in jail. So it turns out there are many, many, many thousands of people who are legally residing in the United States. They can't leave the country. If their family members in Mexico can't get a visa, then Friendship Park becomes the only place they can meet up. So Border Patrol counted one year, there were 2,300 family reunions. That's about 40 or 50 a weekend. And 95% or plus of those families would have been that configuration. So in 2006, the federal government took the land adjacent to the border from the state of California in order to build double walls. And the federal government waived laws to build border walls at many locations along the border, including this one. This was an authority that Congress granted to the Department of Homeland Security with a rider to the Real ID Act of 2005. So post 2005, Secretary of Homeland Security, when he or she wants to build border walls, simply waives laws to build them. So environmental laws, contracting laws, labor laws, Freedom of Information Act, et cetera, et cetera. So under both Republican and Democratic administrations, the U.S. federal government's been able to build walls very quickly without anything like the customary protections or checks and accountability that we think of as, pertaining to any other federal government project. So 2007, 8, and 9, the federal government drove these double walls, seized the land from the state of California by eminent domain, waived laws, and then drove these two walls all the way, as you see, out into the ocean. To actually replace that wall was built in 2013, when they built a pier out onto the ocean to replace the wall that was there then. People in Tijuana saw this pier going up. They were like, hey, this is great. They're building us a pier. Are there going to be restaurants? Or no, they're building a pier so that they could get the heavy machinery out onto the ocean to pile drive the fence in, and then they tore the pier down. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars just to build the last 3 miles of border wall. And since 2009, really, access onto what historically was called Friendship Park has been strictly controlled by Border Patrol. So in 2011, through a long process of meetings and I guess you could call them negotiations, though Border Patrol has all the... So effectively, right, I'm in California property now, and I'm now on federal property, right? So as soon as I step across that line, anything I do or anything you all is subject to enforcement, right? They could say, you're on trespassing, get off, you can't go here, you can't go there, you can't do this, you can't do that. But in 2011, San Diego Border Patrol agreed with many stakeholders in the community and came up with a plan whereby on Saturdays and Sundays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., they open that little gate where the vehicle is, and they allow a limited number of people to go inside, which allows people to get right up against the primary wall. And they covered that primary wall with thick metal mesh, which prevents people from passing things back and forth. Technically, you can't pass anything from Mexico into the United States unless it's inspected by a customs agent. So in the olden days, when many of us started hanging around down here, you could buy a tamale through the wall, right? Or exchange gifts or have a meal. I saw people make out through that wall. Just, this is kind of a very much a public space. But post 2011, they said, okay, you can go in there, but you can't pass anything through the wall because technically that's contraband in the eyes of U.S. law. It's not being inspected by a customs agent. We don't know what you're passing back and forth. So the agreement was people could go in, but they couldn't pass anything back and forth. Originally, they were allowing 25 people at a time in. They reduced that to 10 in 2018. And then post-COVID, they've not yet reopened it. So if any of you are in an advocacy mode, we'd encourage you to call San Diego Border Patrol, tell them to open Friendship Park. So that's yeah, that's kind of a rapid, very whirlwind tour. But the 50th anniversary of Friendship Park, we're celebrating this next month. So if you go to friendshippark50.org, you'll see a whole elaborate, building out a whole series of programming that week that will culminate on Sunday, August 22nd, right here. Please come on back if you'd like to join us. We'll have the mayors of San Diego and Tijuana here and many other elected officials trying to kind of renew the vision from 1971 that this should be a truly binational park, International Friendship Park. And we have an architectural design competition that's been open, and architects from both countries have been sitting design submissions. Those are going to be compiled into a composite kind of presentation of what a truly binational park might look like here. At first blush, I know that may sound crazy, but there are several binational parks on the US-Canada border. And there are other precedents like the Tijuana airport with a terminal in the United States. I mean, Department of Homeland Security knows how to manage binational space where people would enter or exit in an orderly fashion and be able to hang out together in a common space. So that's kind of what we're pushing for with International Friendship Park. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you would go to friendshippark50.org or buildthatpark.org. Dan Wattman, who's here from our Friends of Friendship Park Coalition, is also has been a key leader behind the binational garden of native plants. So just to the east of the monument, where the security rope is over there, you can see there's a binational garden that consists of 3 circles, half of each circle in each country, and all home to native flora from the region. And on the Mexican side, that garden helps to feed people. There's a community meal on Sundays that they'll be serving about 100 people at 2 p.m. All of this is in conjunction with Via International, which is the nonprofit that's been our fiscal sponsor for many years, and where I'm the executive director. Elisa Sabatini over here is our president and CEO of Via International. So if you wanted to learn more about the community work that kind of undergirds a lot of this, and especially the community development work on the Mexican side, you go to viainternational.org. So Border Church is starting soon, and the way that works is the team, as you can hear in Mexico, has set up, you can see through their tents and chairs, they've got a whole thing going on over there, the sound system over there. And since November of 2011, we've met at this location, and we've shared communion on both sides of the border. Originally, we were passing bread through the border. That again became an issue with Border Patrol. So now what we try to do is we make sure that there's a whole team on the Mexican side, a whole setup, but on the U.S. side, we make sure that somebody's here. I'm a pastor in the United Methodist Church. We make sure somebody's here who's whatever, official, has something official going on. And then we consecrate the bread and cup on both sides of the border. We make it clear that anybody is welcome, and we serve to whoever would like to participate. So we call it the Border Church, La Iglesia Fronteriza, and we think of ourselves as a binational community of people of goodwill, and everybody's welcome to participate or observe. The fun part's on the Mexico side, so you guys came to the unfun side of Friendship Park today, and if you ever want to go have a lot more fun, you'll go to Mexico, where the party will last into the, into the evening hours.
So this is John. He's going to be leading some of the communion ceremony by being on the phone on this side, and then it's going to come out the speakers on the other side.
¿Me escuchan? Muy bien. Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Let's
afternoon.
invite our friends here in the United States. Will you greet our friends in Mexico with a big round of applause?
See, it's a small little group of people in this gathering. It's just restarted here after the COVID restrictions.
Nos busquen al este del monumento por acercarse al Jardín Binacional. If our friends in Mexico can come toward the binational garden, you'll be able to see us. On the Mexican side of the wall, you have figured out an answer to this question. Who will feed the multitudes? The Border Church team in Mexico, together with many partners, and most recently, our friends from Via International, are feeding a community meal every Sunday to some 100 people. Del lado mexicano, ustedes han descubierto una respuesta a esta pregunta. ¿Quién va a dar a comer?
¿Quién va a dar a comer
A las multitudes.
a las multitudes?
Es el equipo de la iglesia
Es el equipo de
fronteriza,
la iglesia fronteriza,
con muchos amigos.
muchos amigos,
Últimamente,
últimamente
nuestros amigos de
nuestros
Via
amigos de Via
International,
International,
quienes están dando
están dando
a comer a la comunidad.
reunirse como familia.
And you can hear that the
Es imposible
church service is continuing. I'm just going to show you what
reunirse como
where this
amigos.
wall goes. We're right at the beach
Desde la mentalidad
in San Diego, and that is
no hay
Tijuana.
respuesta.
On that side, and many people who live here suggest that Tijuana and San Diego are a shared city, but then separated by this wall. And you can see that the wall runs down into the water.
For families to be reunited. Reunir a las familias aquí en la frontera.
You can see there's all kinds of
Así que
signs telling
nuestra
people,
parte
warning, don't trespass.
Es pedir
Part of the proclamation of the
que
Jesus
las
story
autoridades federales
is to not consider your neighbor your enemy,
hagan parte de la amistad.
Y hasta que
and to forgive our trespasses.
estaremos presentes.
Estaremos presentes.
It is our responsibility
It is our responsibility
to ask federal authorities
to ask federal authorities
to open Friendship Park.
to open Friendship Park.
And until they do, I'd like you to place your hands
I'd like you to place your hands outstretched
towards our friends across the border.
toward our friends across the border.
Vamos a extender nuestras manos
Vamos a extender nuestras manos
a nuestros amigos
a nuestros amigos
del otro lado de la frontera.
del otro lado de la frontera.
Y con nuestras manos
Y
extendidas,
con nuestras manos extendidas
and with our hands extended,
and with our hands extended,
vamos a pedir el perdón de Dios. We will ask
we will ask
God's forgiveness.
God's forgiveness.
Perdónanos,
Perdónanos,
oh Dios.
oh Dios.
Forgive us, oh God,
Forgive us, oh God.
for we have not
For we
loved
have
you
not loved you
with our whole
with our
heart.
whole heart.
No te hemos amado
Hemos amado
con todo nuestro
con todo
corazón.
nuestro corazón.
And we have
And we have
loved our neighbors as ourselves.
Our neighbors as ourselves.
Ni hemos
Ni hemos
amado a nuestros
amado a
prójimos
nuestros prójimos
como a nosotros
como a
mismos.
nosotros mismos.
Reconocemos
Reconocemos
nuestra
nuestra
necesidad
necesidad
de tu
de tu
perdón.
perdón.
We recognize
We recognize
our need of your forgiveness,
our need of your forgiveness,
oh God.
oh God.
Amén.
Amén.
Un aplauso final.
Un aplauso final.
Y extendemos palabras de
Y
paz
extendemos palabras de paz
y un saludo
y un saludo
a través de la frontera.
a través de la frontera.
Peace of Christ be with you.
Peace of Christ be with you.
Paz de Cristo.
Paz de Cristo.
Y nos reunimos en la mesa.
Y nos reunimos en la
We'll
mesa.
gather back at the table.
We'll gather back at the table.
Amén.
Pero yo empecé a pintar porque estoy poniendo los nombres de los niños que han estado aquí y apenas lo empecé.
So she's an artist, and so she's been painting. She started this just recently, and she's gonna have all the names of the kids that have studied here.
Pero vamos a llenar de puros nombres porque son puros niños que han estado aquí.
So it was all pure kids. But so there's 2 instructors. There's a morning session for a group of kids, and then an afternoon session. So 40 in the morning, 40 in the afternoon, 20 in each group.
They live here in this property?
So the migrants, these are asylum seekers. The last group was here for a year and a half.
Wow.
During COVID. Now there's a whole new group of people that have arrived in the last month, and they have, so they'll start school. The school session starts in 3 weeks. The teachers are on vacation.
And how do they end up here? How do they know that this shelter exists?
They come through Grupo Beta, ¿verdad?
Los traen.
Yeah, so
Grupo Beta, Instituto Nacional de Migración.
so the National Immigration Institute in Nogales will bring people up here, and then the Grupo Beta, which is also a Mexican immigration group. they will call and say, do you have space? And so right now, solo hay capacidad de 120.
Sí, caben como 300, pero salubridad nos ha reducido a un espacio determinado.
So they can get as many as 300 here, but it's just not safe. During COVID, they had 260 here, but they've kind of cut back and said, our best number is right around 120, 140.
Yeah.
And I missed they sleep here?
Oh yeah, they live here. They live here.
El año pasado empezó la pandemia y se cerraron los diferentes albergues. Entonces llegaron aquí toda la gente que andaba en la calle. Tuvimos 280, 290 de marzo.
290, 280 people here during COVID because all the other shelters shut down. And they were able to, and so during that time, people didn't leave. They were here, and so there were people here that didn't leave the property for a year.
You must be exhausted still from that.
Y un día tocaron mucha gente. Yo, ¿qué pasó? Es que nos mandaron cerraron donde estábamos. Entonces, eran 40 y tantas personas. Y yo dije, Dios mío, ¿dónde? Teníamos un espacio para cuarentena. Y dijimos, pues ahí. Y luego ya, al día siguiente, otra más. Se llenó en un rato.
So they had an area for quarantine, and then they filled that up, and then another 40 would show up, and they just kept opening more space.
And
But,
how many teachers?
well, there's only 2 teachers for the school.
Sí.
So during the COVID times, they had all these kids, and then a lot of parents and families.
Y otra maestra para actividades con Save the Children.
Yeah, so then they have another Save the Children is a big program here in Mexico, and they had some instructors that were coming up and doing dynamic games and things with the kids. And then the Methodists have a program called Justice for Our Neighbors. They send their lawyers here. And then the Episcopal Church, the United Church of Christ, and the Evangelical Lutheran Church are the financial supporters for Sister Liga.
Okay.
And what's the situation? Are they at risk from being deported by the Mexican government?
No,
No.
not here.
Okay.
If they were out on the streets and they were Central Americans, yeah, there's the
Yeah,
possibility.
that's what I wanted.
that
Yeah.
they could. But here, normalmente hay gente de América Central y de México.
Estamos esperando unos haitianos.
Yeah, so there are some folks from Haiti that are en route to be here. From Alicia, ¿cómo se llama?
Alicia, la
de
enfermera, ¿verdad? De Colorado.
Sí, yo he recibido
Una llamada.
noticias de ella.
Sí, tenemos ahorita unos venezolanos.
So they have some Venezuelans, they had some Cubans here.
Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, pero un 70-80% de Guerrero, de México.
Yeah, 70 to 80% are coming from Guerrero.
And are these people that went to the United States and then were sent out, or they haven't sought asylum yet?
Normalmente ellos no han tratado de cruzar.
No.
Yeah, they haven't tried to cross.
No,
There are asylum seekers that have come here. And this shelter only receives families. So if you're a single male, you need to go to another place.
So they're preparing to approach the United States.
Yeah. So the lawyers will prepare their papers and set up an appointment and make sure that they're eligible for the asylum
I
house.
see.
So is this where they might wait if they don't have sponsors yet? They might,
Yeah, they would.
might wait and try to get
We're finding
sponsors.
them sponsors. We're doing all that.
y la mayoría son personas que están huyendo porque su vida corre peligro.
Yeah.
Ya mataron a un hijo, a su mamá, a su esposo. O sea, hay gente que ha perdido ya parte de su familia.
Yeah, so the majority of the people here have fled their country or they're wherever they're from, because like a son has been killed, a daughter's been killed, somebody in their family has been killed by the cartels in the gang.
So these people are living in a lot of trauma. Like when they come to you, they're very scared and wounded, traumatized people.
Sí, ellos están viviendo con un trauma.
Sí, sí, sí.
Yeah, so
Entiendo pedacitos. Me quedo con palabras.
she understands a lot more.
Yes, I can understand that. So you're providing more than just a safe place and school. You're caring for the heart and the wounded.
Entiende, en este albergue y su trabajo está dando ayuda a toda la persona, la trauma.
Sí, sí, sí. La persona que salió ahorita es una psicóloga. Ella está apoyando en la parte psicológica.
So the woman that was just out there with her is the psychologist.
Okay.
So she's from Colombia.
Sí, ella es colombiana.
So she's worked in the trauma areas there. She's a professor here at one of the universities.
Yeah.
She volunteers her time here working on psychological.
Y nosotros también tenemos un taller de bordadoras y hacemos diferentes talleres con las familias para que su estancia aquí sea como sin estrés, o sea, lo más relajante que pueda ser.
So there's a lot of workshops that they do on how to relieve stress. One of the programs she was talking about was this bordadora embroidery project that is really kind of well known now. But the women a lot of them do embroidery work. So they get the materials and they embroidery, and then they're able to sell those on a website that a church has opened up in the U.S.
Y estamos organizados, todos colaboran en el mantenimiento de la casa.
Yeah.
Equipo de cocina, de limpieza, del huerto. ¿Vieron el huerto?
Sí.
El huerto.
No, tenemos que verlo.
Bueno.
So, Lika is an incredible community organizer. So she organizes this community so that they take care of the community and they take care of each other. So, each week there's a different group that does the cooking. And it's the migrants that do the cooking. It's the migrants that are doing the cleaning. It's the migrants that have done the building. Different migrants work up into the head gardener, the head of the purification system, the head of the warehouse, everybody. And so they pass on that knowledge to somebody else. So when they leave, they're leaving the responsibility and the knowledge with somebody else. And she's organized all of that. She's only been on this property for about a year. ¿Cuándo llega en esta propiedad?
En el 98 o ahora que llegamos para
en este nuevo tiempo.
En marzo del año pasado. Justo después de eso se empieza la pandemia y se cierra la frontera.
So just right before the pandemic, she finds her organization has had the legal rights to this property, but they didn't get on this property until like a week before the pandemic hit.
Oh my goodness.
And we were housing migrants in a couple houses, and just before the pandemic hit, she was able to move everybody on here, and so then it filled up really fast.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Doug, for being down there and meeting with some of our partners. I'm really looking forward to the We the People ride. You can go to wethepeopleride.org for more information. And again, we're riding from September 10th to November 14th. Not me personally. I'll be down there for about 3 weeks. But a small group is doing the whole thing, and then we're inviting you to join us for a week, couple weeks, even a day, or to organize a ride in your own community. But we're really trying to change the conversation around border and immigration policy. And the best way to do that is to go there and talk to folks on both sides of the border and hear their stories and see the beautiful work that so many are already doing, and to amplify their voices. And as a Christian, our our deepest call is to love our neighbors as ourselves. And there's no caveats in the Bible about love your neighbor as yourself as long as they're on the right side of an artificial border. We're called to love those on both sides of the border, and to treat them with dignity and respect, to treat them as the children of God that they are. And so whatever your initial reactions to border conversations are, I hope we can examine where we're coming from and really find a common good way forward, because everyone agrees that what is going on right now at the border isn't working for anyone. People are still getting through, and so if you're all about border safety, it's not working. The wall isn't working. And if you are for a compassionate, more open, more porous border situation, it's clearly not working as well. If you are for the flourishing of all humanity, this isn't working. So we need to figure this out. We need to have this conversation, and we need to figure out how to talk to each other about this without letting emotions get too far in the way. And we need to figure out how to tell our elected officials that we demand change. This has been an issue for so long, many decades, that is always out there, that politicians say they want to fix, but no one has the political will to actually do it. So we need to hold our elected officials to a higher standard and demand that they fix this broken system. So I hope you join us along the way. I hope you join us in the conversations we're going to have, and we'll be talking a lot more about this in the weeks leading up to it. And I hope we'll see you on the road. Take care, everybody.